This was from a website called mindmatters.ai. And
Is that a legit web domain, AI?
Yeah.
What's that mean?
yeah.
What's
Well,
it-
artificial intelligence is what the AI is for.
And you get to pick, like, do you get to decide whether you're a .com or
Yeah, we could totally be live from the path.ai.
I don't think anybody would buy the iPod.
I don't think we're artificial, though.
No, no.
Whoa, Dan. We're neither one, apparently.
Which, neither letter makes the cut.
We need live from the path.dummy.
I'll check and see what's out there. Actually, I wonder if you can buy the .gov. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, it would.
Okay, so the title of the article is James Webb Space Telescope shows Big Bang didn't happen? Question mark. Wait. The unexpected new data coming back from the telescope are inspiring panic among astronomers. So here's kind of the lead quote. To everyone who sees them, the new James Webb Space Telescope images of the cosmos are beautifully awe-inspiring. But to most professional astronomers and cosmologists, they are also extremely surprising. Not at all what was predicted by theory. In the flood of technical astronomical papers published online since July 12th, the authors report again and again that the images show surprisingly many galaxies that are surprisingly smooth, surprisingly small, and surprisingly old. Lots of surprises. Maybe a thesaurus could be used for this article. And not necessarily pleasant ones. One paper's title begins with the candid exclamation, "Panic!" Exclamation point. Why do the JWST's images inspire panic among cosmologists, and what theories' predictions are they contradicting? The papers don't actually say. The truth that these papers don't report is that the hypothesis that the images are blatantly and repeatedly contradicting is the Big Bang hypothesis that the universe began 14 billion years ago in an incredibly hot, dense state and has been expanding ever since. Since that hypothesis has been defended for decades as unquestionable truth by the vast majority of cosmological theorists, the new data is causing these theorists to panic. Right now, I find myself lying awake at 3 in the morning, says Allison Kirkpatrick, an astronomer at the University of Kansas in Lawrence, and wondering if everything I've done is wrong. Update, Kirkpatrick has protested learners' handling of this quotation. That's interesting. So, I mean, there's a long article there, but like, and he'll provide some kind of justifications as to why they're getting there. But like, one of the things I felt, I thought was super interesting about this article, and I think there's always felt like there's been a contention between kind of a faith perspective and a scientific perspective, and a lot of that was really unnecessary. Like it was a blending of views of worlds that either didn't have to be contentious or were intentionally trying to manipulate each other because we wanted a finger point. Like, don't tell me what happened or what you see demonstrated in the natural world. I know that God did this, and I'm against that. Whereas, I mean, like, there's certainly a path to go. Look, God will do what He wants. It's not like He can't make. If He wanted to make a world that looked like it's been around for billions of years, He totally could.
Right.
I think there's room in the faith spectrum to go, look, nobody was there. Genesis is maybe nebulous on whether it's trying to be history or whether it's trying to tell you something that is true, but through pictures or a mix of poetry and fact and those type of things. And again, God can do as He pleases. There might be a path for that. But I think where some of the critiques landed well from the faith side is the places where science, at least some of these studies, transition into what was a pseudo faith, is to say that things that we can't touch, taste, smell, we've come to believe in so fervently that we were willingly blind to other things that may be true. And it was interesting because science as a study it isn't actually restricted that way philosophically. It's people's interaction with it that does that, right? There's nothing about science. In fact, most, like in its healthiest state, science would go, well, hot dang, that doesn't match what we thought at all.
More information.
That's right. It shouldn't be a panic. It should be well, okay then. Now we've got more to work with.
Data.
Let's roll the dice and see what we can go on the other side. But it became pseudo-religious in a defense against sometimes the notion of a God that like this thing had to be true in this way so that I can exclude this view of the world, that like it actually upends someone in the same way I would be upended if they said, look, we found Jesus's body. Like it's that type of thing. And so I don't know, fellas. Like that was kind of my reaction to it. Was there was some validation in the risks of the study of the world as a religion. And so there's some validation of that, but then like it also I think starts to, if we think about this well, it puts science within its proper bounds, which is human perception of the world around us, and our attempt to understand that in some ways through what we can see, touch, feel, smell, and in some ways of which the knowledge or wisdom or perspectives that have been passed on to us over time, and that probably gets you a more full crack of it. Than maybe even limited to what we can take in. So I don't know if you guys read it, if you had any reactions to it.
I remember in school as a student, going through these what do you call them? Not chapters or periods, sections, whatever of the science, and thinking to myself, maybe God used the Big Bang. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't like against Big Bang,
right?
But when they would start forcing it as fact, I would think, well, if I have to choose, I'm going to go with the God story.
Right.
So you guys lose and he wins. He's been around longer than all of you.
You lose.
So, yeah. But in my mind, I kind of just would kind of sit back and think, I don't know how he did it. I mean, I wasn't there.
Right.
Right. So yeah, maybe he used the Big Bang. Okay, I'm okay with that.
Right.
Maybe he just said bang and it all is as we see it. I was good either way.
You kind of figure that that's what a result of a God interacting into a voidless world would look like. It would look like a Big Bang, right? You're like, things were this, and now they're crazy different.
Just like that,
right?
There's solar systems. Yeah.
I think it was like I've done the same thing. Like I've had this discussion in youth group, where I'm like, I don't know when the hand of God shows up into a world. Like, there's going to be matter and effect on the world. And if that's what the Big Bang is, I got no problem here. It's just same like this article would come out, and I'm like, I got no problem with this either. Like, none of this is shaking me any direction.
Yeah.
And the thing is that's the thing with worshiping science is it changes. Every discipline of science does this about every 50 years, right? We've talked about in the past, like some of the stuff that came out in the 1950s when referring to psychology that's like, look, don't be hugging your kids and getting them all dependent on your love. They need to be independent,
right.
functioning children. And if you pamper them like that, they're going to end up being invalid losers. And like legit pamphlets coming out of the U.S. whatever
Psychiatric Association, whatever it was,
Psychiatric Association for the 1950s, right? And like we can look back, and then 50 years from then, we're like, no, you can't do it. You got to love them.
Dahmer came from.
Yeah, you got to support everything they do, even if it's terrible, And so like, and maybe we've gone too far one direction, but like overall, science always does this.
Yeah.
Right? Like when they discovered uranium, and they're like, this will change the world until it killed a bunch of people. They're like, oh, it turns out you can't like hold it and put it in stoves along with asbestos and lead. Like so science is like we're always like we're every generation or every day is a fresh day for people to go, and this is people in general to go, we've got it all figured out. There's nothing more to be known.
Right.
And so, like, if you can put humanity on the same time clock as you do, like, a child growing up. At 3 years old, Dora is the coolest thing ever. And you're like, nothing is cooler than Dora. And they will sit there and watch it if you let them 12 hours a day, only to find out by the time they're 7, finger paints are the coolest thing ever. And so as they get older and they get more facts and they get more context, things start changing in the way that you view the world. And as a world, we're infants. We're going to be on milk forever until the Lord shows up with meat.
It shows you how powerful peer pressure is, though, because, scientists, they go by consensus, and if all the cool kids are saying there's Big Bang, then you have to say, but there's Big Bang, whether you just make the data say that because, well, that's what all the cool kids say. And because they're smart people, they're not dumb.
Oh no, you're right.
I mean, yeah, but they forget
and neither
sometimes.
is a 5-year-old watching Dora.
Well,
but they're dealing with the facts that they have, and they're like, this is going to be the end.
Right.
But they'll get blind by the consensus. And so, yeah, now they're in shock going, I don't know what to do with this information that seems to contradict what consensus has been. We've got to come up with a new consensus,
And to them, it shouldn't point, in their line of thinking, it doesn't point to a deity. It doesn't point. It means that
it should be exciting. Yeah, like you said, it should be like
all the things.
Fantastic.
You find out that you've been rowing the boat in the wrong direction for 50 years. You're like, I'm going to look like the biggest turd. Like people have been putting out articles and putting their degrees on it, and they're like, this is the thing, and we've been expounding upon it. It turns out the foundation you built it on was going north and you were supposed to be going south, you know?
Right. Which it's where the caution came from, and like, not to kick a pig on fire, but like, with some of the reactions to COVID, or just like anytime we go, hey man,
let's you kick a pig on fire
that's what I'm saying.
I was watching
to get it away from you, or to try to put it out,
Get it back up into the barbecue pit.
You get into the bacon.
How
yeah,
dare
it's
you
like-
leave? Dang it, Todd! You were supposed to make sure this pig was dead.
Things must be persuaded. And so, but it's just there's a caution in it when a man looks out at the world in general and goes, I've got this thing figured out. Like, when a man does not have a sense of his own humility, of his own smallness, in like how capable they are of taking the whole world in, how many things I can understand at one time, how many perspectives I can handle or properly take in to shape and mold what I say and how I say it. Like, where there's an arrogance to it, but it doesn't mean it's ill-intended. It's just like a lack of recognition of how small we are, and it's not intended to make you feel like crappy, but it's just a recognition of like, really, you've got the whole thing figured out. And like, I get it. It's okay to be imperfect people doing the best with the imperfect things, our limited abilities. I think that's okay, but we do need to say that. Like, we think, based upon this much information, as far as my nose can smell, I think there's a fire. Whereas I might find out that my wife bought, like smoke-scented oven mitts, and I'm like, well, hot dang, I had no idea.
I didn't see that one. Yeah.
Why would you do that? But okay. And so, yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I don't care who you are. You're at the most a few decades old.
Right.
I mean, you don't have it figured out.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you're building on previous information, but we're trusting that information,
Right.
from people who were only a few decades old.
Right.
And there's biblical examples of this, right?
Yeah.
Like, Paul had a thing, and he's like, I'm going to Asia. And then he gets there, and God goes, you're not going to Asia. And you're like, right on. Right? That's humility. That's a humbleness that goes, are you sure I want to go to Asia? I'm
Right.
dead set you had me going to Asia. And Paul goes, well, turns out I'm not going to Asia. And then you turn around and go,
Well, and think of how many things. So that there's one side. I think that humility picture paints well. Like, this is not a. I wouldn't. We walk away with this wrongly, and I'm saying this to you, Christian, if you're real excited about it, like, haha, screw you, scientists. That's wrong. That's not how you should be taking this.
right.
This is a humility question of recognizing our humanity and the limits of it, which I think does, if I were to take that same lesson then and put it back from someone who says, look, I love and follow Jesus, I want you to think of the things of which we feel like we're trying to correct from a church perspective from 20 years ago, and what those folks were trying to correct from where they feel like the church overcranked 20 years before that. And frankly, my kids are going to look back at the stuff that I found I was real jazzed about and said, look, we need to get this. We're going to reform and get this right this time. And they're going to go, look, you overcooked a fish on that one, Dad. And so we're going to bring it back around. And we should be glad for the continual refining that God's people are under the leading of the Spirit that says, look, we God pointed us in the right direction, and we kind of humaned it up a bit. We ran with it, and we said, we will never fall for this again, and then we overturned. And so, like, the broad notion is that, like, we should walk humbly. We need to walk humbly with our God, recognize the limits of our human existence, praise God for the delta between us and whatever He's got going on. And then what that keeps us doing is putting our foot in our mouth. What it keeps us from doing is like trying to say, God will handle the rest of these things, but I'll handle this one. Like, just think of all the things where, like, this is the big one that's real obvious. Maybe we got the Big Bang wrong, but like, how many minor things am I asserting, lacking humility, with some level of arrogance, not ill intent, which then causes people to think differently about my belief system because I overcranked on the bounds of the thing that was been presented to me. I overstepped. And like, I think of that when you talk about some of the forcefulness of Turner Burn folk, or, like some of the stuff, like as we learn more about some parts of the Greek language, think of the nuances and some of the revelatory stuff we got from, finding the Dead Sea Scrolls. Right, we learned a lot. Our translations started to shift and change a little bit. Nothing crazy, but like some of the depth of some of these things started to come out. And like, great, that's awesome. The guy before us, well, didn't suck. This is just we refined. And so anyway, I think the call to humility here is a right one, and this isn't just like, hey, I'm glad to see scientists humble. I think science is awesome. I think it reveals good things that God has done, and we should delight in that, and we should be excited for every time we get something wrong because we got a path for look like maybe we're closer. Again, it's a depth thing. It's not a different thing. It's like, okay, well, we know it differently and deeper. So,
some people get super cranked up about that, and you think like God hasn't reinstituted the Tower of Babel. You know what I'm saying? Like, he made a move when he said, look, this is going to get out of hand. You're going to destroy yourselves. I'm going to have to step in and do something, right? Like, he has not felt the same fear or pressure from whatever the scientific community is coming up with, right? To go, I'm going to have to spread these fellas out. This is getting out of hand.
They're getting too small.
And so, like, it is a little bit of arrogance on Christians' part where we're like, the boson or whatever is a tool of the devil. We're like, what do we mean tool of the devil? It's a boson. It's cool. They're making a thing.
You talking about that collider thing?
Yeah, the Higgs boson collider.
Oh, yeah.
That thing, that's boss.
That's a whiz-bang amount of power.
I mean, here's the thing. They're coming up with cool stuff. And like, and like, I don't see God Tower of Babel that thing apart, blowing it up and saying, no, this can't be
right.
So who are you to stand on a street corner and go, all of this is a tool of the devil? It's God's good world. He'll handle that stuff. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, because it's just as easy it is to crank on the science community that obviously thinks we're crazy. We don't help by fueling the fire by sounding like a bunch of crackpot conspiracy theorists. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm afraid that the Higgs boson is going to tear down my faith in the Lord. I don't care about that Higgs boson.
Right.
I'm kind of excited to see what they do.
The particle goes so fast that all of a sudden 3 angels are exposed.
Yeah.
Living in Utah.
Still in the fire.
Yeah. That's a good point, right? Like, it's not like God couldn't have laser beamed the International Space Station. He don't care. He don't care. So anyway, I thought it was a cool article, to be honest, because it's super interesting. Like, the limits, like as humans expand our ability to look farther, we come more and more to the conclusions of like, boy, we just didn't have we did our best, but we don't know.
We didn't know.
What a cool place to be,
I
man.
mean, who doesn't feel like that after they've raised some kids? You know what I'm saying? Like, go leave your house and you're like, we did the best we could. I don't know. I don't know. I think we did the best with the information we had. And that one's weird, but I mean, I love them.
Yeah.